The hall of the alien market was loud with voices. Chains clinked and torches burned on the walls. Throwing shadows over the rows of cages, merchants shouted, buyers laughed, and slaves waited with fear in their eyes. At the center stood two sisters, both chained, both trembling. The older girl held the younger close, whispering promises she could not keep. They had been together since birth, but tonight they feared it would end. The auctioneer, a tall alien with 4 arms and cold yellow eyes, slammed his staff on the floor. "Next," he shouted, his voice echoing in the chamber. The guards dragged the sisters forward into the bright light. The crowd leaned in with hungry eyes. The older sister tried to look brave, though her heart pounded. The younger one buried her face in her sister's arm. Shaking like a leaf, the auctioneer raised his hand. "These two will be sold together or apart as the buyers demand," he declared. But the way his lips curled told the truth. The sisters would not leave together. The auction was rigged and everyone knew it. It was a trick often used to force buyers to fight for one and leave the other behind. It brought more money, more cruelty, more despair. "Start the bidding," the auctioneer shouted. Voices rose at once. But something was wrong. The numbers flew too fast. The offers came too quickly. The sisters watched in horror, realizing the buyers were not truly competing. They were working together, pushing the price higher. Then splitting the sisters apart, the crowd cheered, not caring about the fear in the girl's eyes. This was entertainment to them. 2 lives destroyed for sport. The older sister's hands shook on the cold chains. She whispered to her sibling, "Stay close to me." "Don't let go," the younger nodded. Tears wetting her cheeks, but the guards were already moving, preparing to tear them apart the moment the hammer fell. The auctioneer laughed, calling out numbers that no one could match. The game was fixed, the sister's fate sealed. The younger one cried out, "Please, don't take me from her." Her voice cut through the noise for a moment. Some in the crowd laughed cruelly, others ignored it. To them, her words were nothing more than the cries of property. The auctioneer slammed his staff down again. "Silence," he barked. His grin stretched wider. "This is how the market works." The older sister's heart broke as she looked at the faces around her. So many eyes, but none with mercy, so many voices, but none with kindness. She thought no one would help, no one would even try. The hammer was raised. "One more bid," the auctioneer called. His voice echoed like a death sentence. The crowd leaned forward, waiting for the sound that would seal the sister's fate. The younger sobbed louder. Clinging with all her strength, the older whispered, "I won't let them take you," though she knew she was powerless. The guards were stronger, the chains unbreakable, the buyers rich and cruel. No hope remained. Then through the noise, a voice rose, clear and firm. It was not like the harsh alien tongues. It was deep, steady, human. "I'll bid," the voice said. The hall froze for a heartbeat. The crowd turned to look. There, at the back of the chamber, stood a human man. He was tall, his clothes plain, his boots dusty from long travel. His eyes were calm, but they held a strength that silenced the whispers. He raised one hand slowly. "I'll take them," he said, his tone leaving no room for doubt. The crowd erupted with gasps and murmurs. A human here in the auction of chains? It was rare, almost unheard of, and to bid for 2 sisters at once. Madness. The auctioneer narrowed his yellow eyes. "You are out of place, human," he hissed. The human did not answer, only lifted his hand higher. The sisters stared at him, hope flickering in their tired eyes. The older felt her breath catch. Could it be real? Could someone truly save them? The younger's tears slowed, her gaze fixed on him as if he were a star in the dark. The crowd grew restless, some mocking, some whispering warnings, but the human did not move. His voice cut again through the chaos. "They stay together," he said, and for the first time that night, the auctioneer's grin faltered. The market did not know what to do when the human spoke. For a moment the great chamber was silent, only the crackle of torches filling the air. Then laughter broke out, harsh and cruel. "A human?" one alien barked, his scales flashing in the firelight. "Is this a joke?" shouted another. The crowd roared with mockery, as if the human's presence was a bad play on stage. The sisters held their breath, their hands still locked together. They had never seen a human this close before. His face was calm, his stance firm, as if the noise around him meant nothing. The older sister whispered, "He is not afraid." The younger clung tighter to her, whispering back, "Can he really save us?" The auctioneer slammed his staff on the floor. "Silence!" he demanded, though his own voice trembled with unease. His yellow eyes narrowed at the stranger. You, human, have no place here. This market is not for your kind. But the man did not step back. He only spoke again, his tone steady. I said I'll take them. Both of them. The crowd gasped, then muttered, then laughed louder. He cannot pay, one alien jeered. He is a wanderer. Look at his clothes, look at his boots. He has nothing, others shouted. Throw him out. And he has no right to bid. But still the human stood, his hand raised. There was no fear in his eyes, only resolve. The auctioneer sneered. You insult this house with false claims. Do you even have the credits? The human reached into his worn coat and pulled out a small device. Its screen glowed, showing more wealth than most in the hall could dream of. The crowd gasped again, this time with shock instead of laughter. The auctioneer's smile faltered, but quickly returned. This does not matter, he hissed. The bidding has already been done. The human's voice cut through the air once more. No, it has not. You rigged it. The room went silent again. Whispers spread fast and sharp. The human had spoken the forbidden word, rigged. Everyone knew the games played at these auctions, but no one dared to say it aloud. Now a human had spoken it without fear. The sisters looked at him with wide eyes. Could he truly see the lies so easily? The older one felt a spark of hope inside her chest. The younger one's tears slowed, her small hand tightening on her sister's. They both leaned closer to each other, whispering, Maybe, maybe. The auctioneer's face darkened, his forearms trembling with anger. You dare accuse me in my own hall? He spat. The human's answer was calm but firm. I dare. The crowd buzzed like angry insects, some thrilled by the drama, others frightened of what might come next. The auctioneer tried to push forward. Fine, then bid, human. If you wish to waste your fortune. He called out a number higher than before. His voice loud, the human matched it without pause. The auctioneer raised it again. The human matched again. His tone unshaken. It went back and forth, the tension rising with every number. The alien lords in the front rows grew restless. They had come expecting easy sport. Not resistance, they whispered among themselves. Glaring at the human, one hissed, End this. Now, another growled. He cannot win. The auctioneer must not let him. The sisters trembled. Each bid echoing in their hearts, the older one whispered. He will not give up, the younger whispered back. But they will not let him win. Their fear returned. But alongside it was something new. Faith. Fragile but real. The auctioneer slammed his staff once more, his voice sharp. These girls cannot be sold together. Rules forbid it. The human's eyes narrowed. Your rules change when it suits you, he said. The hall shook with gasps. Some of the crowd shouted for his removal, others for his courage. Lines were being drawn, and the tension was reaching its breaking point. The sisters stared at him, their hearts racing. For the first time in years, someone was not treating them as objects. For the first time, someone was standing against the whole market, and he was doing it for them. The auctioneer's lips curled in anger. Enough! Guards, he barked, pointing with one long claw. At once, armored guards began to move, their heavy steps echoing. The crowd roared with excitement, the air thick with danger. The older sister clutched the younger, whispering, Stay strong. The younger closed her eyes. Praying silently, the human did not move. His hand was still raised, his voice steady. They stay together, he said again, louder this time, and the hall shook with the force of his defiance. The guards marched forward, their heavy boots shaking the wooden floor. Their armor glimmered under the torchlight, sharp edges meant to intimidate. The crowd leaned in, eager for blood, eager for chaos. The auctioneer's grin returned. Cruel and satisfied, remove him, he commanded. This is not his world. This is not his fight. But the human did not step back. He stood tall, his hand still raised, his eyes locked on the sisters. The girls stared back, trembling, their hearts pounding in their chests for the first time. They felt like someone was fighting for them, not against them. Hope burned, fragile but bright. In the darkness of the hall, the first guard reached for the human, his claws sharp and ready to strike. The human moved with calm precision, sidestepping and grabbing the guard's wrist. With one swift motion, he twisted and forced the alien to stumble. Gasps filled the room. No one expected resistance. A slave buyer was not supposed to fight, let alone win. The auctioneer's face twitched with rage. Do not let him shame this hall, he roared. Two more guards rushed forward. Chains clinking in their hands, they swung, aiming to trap the human. To drag him down, the human dodged, his movements controlled and sharp. He seized one chain and yanked it free, spinning it with unexpected skill. The crowd erupted in shouts, half cheering, half cursing. The sisters pressed close together, their eyes wide with shock. The younger whispered, "He's fighting for us." The older gripped her hand, whispering back, "He will not give up." But fear gnawed at her heart. How long could one man stand against so many? The alien lords shouted from the front, "This is treason. This is madness." One hissed, "Break him. End him now." But there were whispers too, soft and uncertain. Some in the crowd murmured, "Look at him, he is not afraid." Others whispered, "Humans. They are not weak as we thought." The bidding war was forgotten. The fight for the sisters had begun. Every eye was fixed on the human, every voice rising with tension. The auctioneer tried to regain control, slamming his staff again and again. "These girls will be separated. It is already decided," he shouted. But his words no longer carried the same weight. The crowd's attention was no longer his. It belonged to the stranger. The human stood firm, breathing steady, the chain still in his grip. The guards hesitated now, wary of his strength. The auctioneer hissed, "Do not stop. Take him down." Yet the guards' steps slowed, doubt creeping into their eyes. No one wanted to be the next to fall before this unexpected challenger. The sisters clutched their chains, hearts racing. The younger whispered, "Maybe he can do it." The older shook her head slightly. "They will not allow it. They will cheat again." Her words were true, and her eyes caught the auctioneer's hidden gesture, a signal to the elites in the shadows, buyers with power beyond gold. They rose from their seats, their presence heavy and dangerous. These were not ordinary bidders, they were enforcers of the system itself. The crowd fell silent as the elite stepped forward, tall, armored, and cruel, their very appearance enough to silence rebellion. One spoke, his voice like grinding stone, "Human, this market is not yours to change. Leave now, or be buried under its laws." The human's eyes narrowed, his voice calm as ever. "Then your laws are broken." The crowd gasped, the words echoing like thunder. The sisters' breath caught, tears in their eyes, not of despair, but of something new, the younger whispered. "He believes it," the older whispered back. "Yes, he truly does." The elite sneered, drawing weapons glowing with cruel light. The auctioneer clapped his hands, his grin wide once more. "Now let us see if he still dares to bid," he said with venom. The human took one step forward, placing himself fully between the sisters and the threat. His voice was steady, sharp enough to cut through the chaos. "They stay together," he repeated. Louder than before, the words echoed across the hall. Defying the system, defying the chains. The crowd was torn apart, half cheering for his defiance, half demanding his destruction. The guards circled, the elites advanced. The auctioneer's staff slammed again, the sound like a hammer of doom. The sisters clung to each other tighter than ever, their chains biting into their skin. Fear and hope clashed in their hearts. The older whispered, "This is not just about us anymore," the younger whispered. "Then what is it about?" The older answered, "It's about him. It's about all of us." The hall was no longer just an auction. It was a battlefield of will, one human against a system built on cruelty, one man standing for two sisters who had nothing left. And as the guards prepared to strike again, the crowd leaned forward, breathless, not knowing if they were about to witness his fall, or the beginning of something greater. The air inside the hall grew heavy. The torches flickered as if the fire itself feared what was about to happen. The auctioneer's grin widened, his sharp teeth catching the light. "Enough of this game," he snarled. "Tear the sisters apart now." Two guards moved at once, their claws gripping the chains that bound the younger girl. The older sister cried out, pulling against her bonds with desperate strength. "No, don't take her." The younger screamed, holding on with both hands, her small fingers digging into her sister's arm. The crowd cheered wildly, their voices rising like a storm. They loved the spectacle, they loved the cruelty. The human stepped forward, his shadow falling over the girls. He placed himself between them and the guards, his eyes cold, his jaw set. "Stop," he said, his voice like a stone dropping into still water. The word rippled across the hall, silencing laughter, silencing jeers. The guards hesitated for just a moment. The auctioneer slammed his staff down. "Do not stop, obey!" The guards lunged again, pulling at the chains with brute force. The sisters screamed louder, clinging to each other until their knuckles turned white. Their cries echoed sharp and painful. It was the sound of hearts breaking. The human caught one chain with his bare hand. Metal cut into his palm, but he did not release it. He pulled back with strength that shocked even the guards. Their arms shook, their stance faltered, the crowd gasped. A wave of disbelief rolling through them. A human should not have had that kind of power. But he did, and he was not letting go. The older sister looked up at him. Her eyes wide with fear and hope, she whispered, "Why? Why are you doing this for us?" The human did not look at her. His gaze locked on the guards. "Because no one else will," he answered. His voice steady, the words struck her like lightning. No one else had ever said that. No one else had ever cared. The auctioneer hissed in rage. "This is madness. You cannot win, human." His voice cracked with anger. But in his eyes there was something else, something he did not want the crowd to see. Fear. The guards tried again, their muscles straining as they pulled at the chains. The human braced his legs, refusing to move. The younger sister sobbed, reaching toward him. Her voice broke. "Please don't let them take me." The human's grip tightened, the chain cutting deeper into his skin. "I won't," he said, and the hall trembled with the force of his vow. The crowd was no longer united. Some shouted for the guards to finish it. Others murmured that the human was right, that the auction was rigged. The hall began to split. Voices clashing like swords for the first time. Doubt spread through the market. The auctioneer saw it, and it enraged him. He raised his staff high, calling for the elites. "You, end this now! Show him what happens to those who defy us." From the shadows, more armored figures stepped forward, their weapons glowing with deadly light. The room hushed. Everyone sensing the breaking point had finally come. The sisters clung tighter, their tears falling onto the human's coat. The older whispered, "He will die for us," the younger whispered back, "No, he will live for us." They did not know which was true, but they knew he would not abandon them. The elites spread out, their blades humming with energy. The crowd leaned forward, hungry to see blood. The auctioneer's grin returned, twisted and cruel. "This ends now," he declared. But the human's voice cut across his words, sharp and unyielding. They stay together. The words echoed louder than any weapon. The sisters felt it deep in their bones. The crowd felt it too. A truth so clear that even those who loved cruelty could not ignore it. The auctioneer's face twisted with rage. He shouted, "Kill him!" The guards surged forward. The elites closed in. The sisters screamed, clinging to each other as if their lives depended on it. The human did not move back. He stood tall, his fists clenched, his eyes blazing. Every chain, every rule, every cruel law pressed against him. But he would not bend. He would not let go. The older sister whispered, her voice shaking. "This is the end." The younger whispered, her eyes on the human. "No, this is the beginning." The hall roared, chaos exploded, steel clashed, chains rattled, voices cried out. The breaking point had come, and everyone in that cursed market knew. Nothing would ever be the same again. The hall was in chaos, the guards and elites pressed forward, chains and weapons flashing in the firelight. The human stood firm, his body like an unmovable wall. The sisters clung behind him, their small hands clutching his coat. Every sound in the chamber mixed into one storm. Jeers, cries, shouts, the clashing of steel. The auctioneer tried to control it with his staff, slamming it on the wooden floor. "Order! Order in this hall!" he bellowed, but his voice was drowned out. The crowd was no longer listening. Whispers grew louder, spreading like fire. "Did you see how he fought?" One alien murmured. "He stopped them with his bare hands." Another answered, "Humans, they are dangerous." A third hissed, though not with hate, but with awe. The human held the chain in his bleeding hand, his voice steady. "They stay together," he repeated, as if the words themselves were iron. The older sister's breath caught at those words. She whispered to her sibling, "No one has ever spoken for us like this." The younger whispered back, "He speaks like he already won." The auctioneer saw the shifting of the crowd. He saw the fear in some eyes, the admiration in others, and it made his fury burn hotter. "This is a lie. This is a trick," he screamed, his forearms waving wildly. "The human has no right here. He is nothing. He is dust under our boots." But his words felt weaker now, even as he shouted. The crowd did not answer with the same strength. Some looked at the human, some at the sisters, and their silence spoke louder than jeers. One alien woman in the back cried out, "He is right." The auction was rigged. Gasps filled the room. The auctioneer's face twisted in shock. Silence. You dare accuse me? But more whispers spread. Yes, the bids were false, one voice said. They wanted to split the girls, another muttered. The hall trembled with unrest. The sisters felt it too. For the first time in years, they were not invisible. Eyes looked at them not as objects, but as living beings caught in cruelty, the younger whispered. They see us, the older whispered, because he made them see us. The elites tightened their circle. Their glowing blades raised, the auctioneer shouted, End this before the crowd forgets who rules here. But the guards hesitated now, their eyes flicking between the human and the restless market. Even they felt the shift, no matter how strong the chains. No matter how cruel the rules, the market was beginning to crack. The human reached into his coat and lifted the glowing credit device again. The numbers on its screen shone bright for all to see. I have more than enough to buy them both, he said, his voice calm. Your own laws cannot refuse me. The crowd gasped once more. The auctioneer froze, his jaw tight. He knew it was true. By the market's law, the highest bidder could not be denied. The older sister's heart pounded. Could it really be? She whispered. The younger clung tighter, whispering back, Maybe it's over. But even as they dared to hope, the auctioneer's eyes narrowed. He gave a subtle hand signal hidden from most eyes. The guards closest to him stiffened, then moved quietly into position. They were not going to follow the law. They were going to end it with force. The sisters did not notice, but the human did. His eyes tracked every movement. He shifted his stance, ready. The crowd murmured louder, sensing betrayal, sensing danger. If the auctioneer ignored the market's own rules, what did that mean for all of them? Whispers turned into shouts. This is wrong! He has the credits, let him take them. Why cheat again? The auctioneer slammed his staff, his voice sharp and desperate. Enough! He will not leave with them. But the crowd no longer followed him blindly. Some shouted back, Let him take the girls. He won fairly. You rigged it. The sisters clutched each other tighter, their tears mixing with trembling hope. The older whispered, The crowd is turning, the younger whispered. Then maybe we are not alone anymore. The elite stepped closer, their glowing blades humming louder. But the sound of the crowd rising made even them hesitate. The human did not move, his voice steady and louder than before. They stay together, and I will walk out with them. The hall shook with his defiance. The crowd erupted, half cheering, half enraged. The market was no longer one voice, it was split down the middle. The auctioneer's grin returned, though twisted. You think they will save you, human? The crowd cannot protect you. But even as he spoke, more voices shouted against him. The old order was slipping from his grasp. The human's act of defiance had cracked the chains that held their silence. The sisters looked at each other, eyes wide. This is more than us, the older whispered. Yes, the younger answered, her voice shaking. This is about all of them too. The market had turned, and nothing could stop it from breaking apart. The hall trembled with noise. Half the crowd shouted for the auctioneer, half shouted for the human. The air was heavy with smoke, fear, and fury. The sisters pressed close together, their hands gripping tight. The younger whispered, It feels like the whole world is breaking, the older whispered back. It already has. The auctioneer slammed his staff down again, his voice sharp. Seize him. Cut him down. The elite surged forward, glowing blades humming like thunder. The guards rushed too, chains rattling, boots pounding the wooden floor. The crowd roared as the storm broke. The human did not step back. He placed himself in front of the sisters, his shoulders broad, his stance solid. His hand still bled from the chain, but his eyes never wavered. Stay behind me, he told the girls. His voice calm. The sisters nodded, their hearts pounding. They had never seen anyone stand like this, not for them. Not for anyone. The first guard swung a chain at his head. The human ducked, the chain slashing through air. With a swift movement, he grabbed the guard's arm and pulled hard. The alien crashed into the floor with a sickening thud. Gasps filled the hall. Another came from the side. His blade glowing bright, the human twisted, seized the chain still in his hand and wrapped it around the guard's wrist. With one pull, the weapon clattered to the floor. The crowd roared, some with rage, some with awe. He fights like a soldier. One voice cried, No, he fights like something more, another whispered. The auctioneer's grin faltered. Kill him, he screamed, spittle flying from his mouth. Two elites lunged at once, their glowing blades crossing in deadly arcs. The human caught one strike on the stolen chain. sparks flying as metal clashed against light. He sidestepped the second, his elbow slamming into the alien's chest. The elite staggered, choking. The sisters held each other tighter. Their eyes wide, the younger whispered, "He's winning." The older whispered, "He cannot hold forever." Her words were true. For every guard that fell, more stepped forward. The human's chest rose and fell, sweat shining on his skin. But his eyes still burned with defiance. The crowd was no longer silent. They shouted, screamed, argued, "Let him have them." One voice called, "He must be stopped," shouted another. The market was breaking apart, and the auctioneer knew it. If the human was not crushed, everything he built would crumble. The auctioneer's yellow eyes blazed. "You will not leave this hall alive," he roared, but the human looked at him with calm fire. "Then I will die standing, not kneeling," he said. The crowd gasped, the words striking deep. Even the sisters felt their hearts pound with pride. No one had ever spoken like that in this cursed place. The elites regrouped, forming a circle. Their glowing blades hummed as they raised them together. The human stood in the center, his fists tight, his chain ready. The sisters whispered prayers under their breath. Their voices shaking, the younger whispered, "Please don't let him fall." The older whispered, "Please don't take him from us." The circle closed, blades slashing from every side. The human moved with speed the crowd did not expect. He ducked, spun, blocked with the chain. Struck with fists, every motion was precise. Every strike powerful. Aliens twice his size staggered back. Weapons clattered to the floor. One after another they fell. The crowd exploded in noise. Some cheered wildly. Others screamed in rage. The auctioneer's staff shook in his hand, his face pale with fury. "No! This cannot be," he cried. But the truth was plain. The human stood tall, bloodied but unbroken, and around him lay the fallen guards of the market. The sisters looked at him with tears streaming down their faces. The younger whispered, "He saved us." The older whispered, "No, he saved more than us." They were right, for the crowd had changed. Even those who hated him could not deny what they saw. One man defying the weight of the system, one man refusing to let chains decide the future. The auctioneer tried one last desperate move. He pointed at the sisters, his voice sharp as a blade, "Take the girls. If we cannot break him, then break them." Gasps filled the hall. Even the crowd that supported cruelty grew silent. This command was too far, too vile, but the human had already stepped forward, his body shielding the sisters completely. "Touch them," he said, his voice low and deadly. "And you will not leave this hall alive." The words froze the guards in place. Even the elites hesitated, their blades lowering slowly. The human's defiance had become a force greater than weapons, greater than rules. The auctioneer's voice cracked as he shouted, "He cannot win. He is just one man." But the silence that followed proved otherwise. One man had stood against the market. One man had made the crowd doubt its chains. And one man had protected two sisters no one else cared to save. The human raised his head high, his voice echoing once more. "They stay together," he said. The crowd erupted, not in mockery this time, but in thunderous noise. Some cheered, some shouted in anger. But no one ignored him. No one could. The human's defiance had split the market in two, and nothing would ever mend it again. The hall was no longer an auction. It was a battlefield of silence and noise. Fear and courage, the fallen guards groaned on the ground. Their weapons scattered, the elites stood frozen, their glowing blades lowered. The sisters pressed close to the human, their chains clinking softly, their wide eyes fixed on the man who refused to bow. The auctioneer trembled with rage, his forearms shaking. "This cannot be," he shouted, spittle flying. One human cannot undo the laws of this hall, but even his own words sounded weak. The crowd was no longer his. They looked at the human now, their whispers sharp as fire. "Did you see him?" One voice said. "He fought them all, and he did not fall." Another answered. "He stood for the sisters. When none of us would, the sisters clung tighter." Hope trembling in their hearts, the older whispered, "He has already won," the younger whispered back. "But will they let him leave?" The auctioneer slammed his staff, desperate. "Do not let him take them."
"He cannot walk out."
But the crowd did not move. Some even stepped back, leaving a path open. The human's voice rose once more, calm but unshakable. "I have the credits, I won the bid, and I take them both." His words cut through the chamber like a blade. They stayed together. The market had lived on lies, but in that moment truth felt stronger. Even the guards who still stood lowered their eyes. None dared to move against him again. The auctioneer's fury turned to fear. His grip on his staff loosened. He could feel control slipping away. The system of cruelty cracking under the weight of one man's defiance. The human walked slowly, step by step. The sisters followed close, still chained but holding to him as if he were the only solid ground in a storm. The crowd parted like water. Some sneered, some spat, but none dared to block his path. Others looked at the sisters with something new in their eyes. Sympathy, guilt, even respect, the younger whispered. They see us now, the older whispered. Because of him, the auctioneer shouted again, his voice breaking. You cannot take them. If you walk out, the whole market will fall. The human stopped, turned his head slightly. His eyes locked on the trembling master of the hall. Then let it fall, he said, his voice quiet but heavy as stone. The sisters gasped, their hearts racing. The crowd roared, some in rage, some in wild cheers. That single sentence broke what little control the auctioneer still had. The human turned back and continued walking, step by step toward the exit, toward the light beyond the dark hall. The guards stood aside, their eyes filled with doubt. The elites lowered their glowing weapons. Unwilling to strike again, the crowd's voices rose into thunder. Chains rattled, merchants shouted, but no one stopped him. The sisters felt the night air at last as the great doors opened for the first time in years. The sky stretched above them, free and wide. The younger clutched the human's arm, her voice shaking. You saved us, she whispered. The older looked at him with tears streaming down her face. You risked everything. For us. The human did not look down, his eyes still on the horizon. You deserved better, he said simply. Behind them, the market crumbled into chaos. The auctioneer screamed orders that no one obeyed. The crowd argued, divided and restless. The chains of silence had been broken, and nothing would bind them the same way again. The story of what happened there would not stay hidden. It would spread from mouth to mouth, from city to city. A story of a human who defied the system. A story of two sisters who were not broken. The sisters walked beside him, their chains still hanging. But the weight of them felt lighter now. The older whispered, what happens next? The human looked at her at last, his eyes calm. You are free now, he said. The words hit her harder than any chain ever could. Free, a word she had never thought she would hear. The younger smiled through her tears. She whispered to her sister, we are free. Together. The older nodded, holding her close. Yes, together. The three of them walked into the night. The human leading, the sisters following behind them. The hall of chains burned with noise, anger and broken pride. Ahead of them lay a path unknown. But it was theirs, and for the first time, the sisters believed in tomorrow. The galaxy would not forget this night. They would whisper of the human who stood in the auction, who bled but did not bow, who tore two sisters from the hands of cruelty, and who spoke words that changed everything. They stay together.